Why was the British Empire's attack on the Boer republics the fundamental reason for a chain of events that would lead to the destruction of the British Empire? Well, and also to the creation of a European Union. Well, in my recent vid, British Empire and European Survival, I asked, was the British Empire a force for good in the world? Was it a force for European survival or a force for evil and the detriment of European survival? Well, in the 20th century, I will say that it's definitely a detriment to European survival. Why? Because the Milner Group, who was the chief group of people, which included Cecil Rhodes, the Rothschilds, and Alfred Milner, were the leading group within the Anglo-American establishment. Now, this group, as said by Carol Quigley and Thomas Pakenham in their books respectively, The Boer Tragedy and Hope and The Boer War by Thomas Pakenham, said that this group of people was international rather than national, and Alfred Milner set out to create a federalised British Empire. How was he going to do this? He was an official, not a politician, and part of the university system. Well, Joseph Chamberlain was his agent within the British government and the British Parliament to do this. And Joseph Chamberlain was the chief architect of the Boer War. He was in touch with the Roberts Group of the British Army Generals and Kitchener Group of British Army Generals that wrote up the plan for the Boer War. And their agent in that was Cecil Rhodes, who had the idea for the plan to take over what was Matabele land and change it to Rhodesia, and then that thus became Zimbabwe today. He also had a plan to take over the Boer republics and create a Boer War independently of the Milner Group themselves, but they joined forces in the end to unleash what became a major disaster, because for the first time European powers saw that since the 17th century, European powers saw that Britain was going to turn its guns not on people who were the natives, who were black or Asian or South American, or Polynesians, but on fellow Europeans. And this chain of events melded with the other force that Milner was creating, which was a series of alliances between all of the European powers. That's the British power with France and Russia against the Central Powers, which was Germany, Austria and Turkey mainly. Now, when Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated, these alliances were all triggered off, and France and Russia invaded Austria and Germany because Austria and Germany declared war on Serbia, the ones who assassinated Archduke Ferdinand. So the Boer War led indirectly to the First World War, and the First World War led indirectly to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Second World War. So therefore it was fundamentally wrong move for the British Empire, because it turned Europeans against Europeans, and because of this the whole system of the international system was completely changed. Because of World War II, the Milner Group were replaced by another group of people who were in the university system, and they determined that the Europeans would never again fight one another on such a scale, and they averted the Cold War becoming a Third World War. I can't go into detail on that, but they tried to create a system where Germany and Britain would be the alliance partners in a European Union, which would be first based on a coal and steel tariff, and then this would grow into becoming a European superpower. And this is exactly what has happened. The European Union was the creation of the of British, German chiefly, and other European university systems combining together to train people to become part of a European-wide system of governance within a social market. This has created what is in effect not a European empire but a European Union. Now, could the European Union take on the role of the British Empire? That's an interesting point that could be looked at. Well, it would not operate as the British Empire did, which was as a colonial force within the world, but the European Union might create many different unions throughout the world to create what would be a European sphere of influence, which would be global. Now, the Milner Group, in Carroll Quigley's book The Anglo-American Establishment, this is before 1945, mind you, spoke about how that group of people, the Milner Group, would like to have retaken America through a federalised British Empire by including America in that empire, and then thus having a de facto head of state, which would be a two-person head of state system where the Queen and the President of the United States would be equal partners, be seen as equal, and this entity, which might be called an Atlantic alliance between the United States and the British Empire, would have probably have had its capital in Washington. But this sounds fanciful now, but when the British Empire covered a quarter of the world's surface and had 2/3 of the world's people, it does not sound so fanciful. The European Union, however, is creating a North African Union, a Middle Eastern Union, might even include Turkey and Iran in the European Union, as well as Azerbaijan, and also the Ukraine and Belarus and the Baltic countries, as well as maybe the Scandinavian countries arriving later. Sweden, of course, is already in, and Russia could follow into becoming part of the European Union. But how can the European Union help South Africa? This brings us back to where the problem started, when Europeans turned on Europeans. Rather than Europeanising Africa, they Africanised Europe, in that we turned on each other and turned to barbarism. I don't believe that's a racialist point, but it's certainly a point which is current, since there's still cannibalism in Africa, in Central Africa, and there was cannibalism within World War I and World War II. There are cases of it. So I don't believe I'm wrong on that point. But the problem with South Africa is that we have left it. There is only over 600,000 European people, or Boer descent, or English descent, living in shanty towns in South Africa, and what is being done to help them? Nothing. We have to hear about it from Al Jazeera, the Bin Laden's mouthpiece. On that subject, we must look now at the Anglo-American establishment, and that look especially at Churchill, Winston Churchill, who with Roosevelt gave the assurances to the Saudi and later the Bin Laden crime families that they would be the sole power in Saudi Arabia. And that's what my next talk will be on the subjects of European survival. We must help South Africa, and we must make a Europeanised world where the European Union is the global hyperpower in a partnership with a Europeanised America. Thank you for listening.